Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this week's episode of the BigFooty Bombercast. We are past the Bulldogs game. That was this afternoon, and I'm sitting here with a man that last week I did promise the listeners of the podcast that he was taking a week off to find out exactly what was wrong with our club, and he would have all the answers as to what has gone wrong in the last 20 years. So, Grizz, our listeners are listening intently. What has happened? Why are we so shit over the past 20 years?
I've done some deep investigation, Bonta, and I've just realised that we just have no idea what we're doing as a football club. I think we can nut it down to that. Most importantly, our players can't football, which seems to be a major requirement of playing AFL, but I'm sure we'll talk about that as the pod goes on.
And our special guest this evening is a man that I know was as disappointed as I was that Tom Hurd was not selected. And I think he's actually now on board the let's play Alex Hurd and pay whatever fine it takes to get him into the AFL. And that is jmoo. How are you this evening?
I'm great. I'm fantastic. And I reckon, play Tom Hurd, play Alex Hurd. What are they going to do? Tell him to leave the field?
Josh Mercedes, just get all the father sons.
Get them all. Yeah, we did it with Stephanie Hurd when she was the team manager. We paid whatever fine we had to. Just do it again. Play the sons and daughters of champions and just let's play them. And what are they going to do? What are they going to do?
There was a very famous line from a BigFooty poster at one stage when the bans came down at the end of 2015, and he said, "We should just play anyway. What are they going to do? They can't stop us from taking the field." Which was I can't remember who said it, but it was a great line at the time, and it's something I'm feeling right at this time. Let's just do some stuff and see what happens. I mean, what's the AFL? The AFL love us. They gave us 3 Friday night games in a row.
They owe us. We paid the fine in advance, the $2 million, and whoever said it was a genius. And I think just play them, play all of the Herds, bring them all in, bring the Mercedes, there's an Alessio floating around somewhere as well. Just play them all. We'll pay the fine. What are they going to do? They're not going to stop us.
But of course, we did have a game today, Grizz, and I'll let you. And look, I'll be honest. I'll do what I think is a very Essendon thing to do right now, and I'll handball the opening review of the game to you and tell us what your thoughts were.
As I received this handball, I look around, about to get flattened by 4 incoming Bulldogs who were just waiting for that hospital hand pass.
And Grizz is not ready to do a review of the game.
No,
at all.
No, I feel like I'm somewhat ready. Look, I did manage to watch last week as well, and it's sort of been a very familiar tone, I think, for the last month, in that, our contest stats were pretty good. It's just we didn't work hard enough around the ground. We didn't chase hard enough. Our spread, both offensively and defensively, was horrendous. I don't know if it's just a conscious thing that we don't know what to do when an opposition switches the ball once in their back half. We act like every time it happens, it's like we've never seen a team do it before and they don't know how to defend it. It's quite remarkable. But look, coming into this year, we're always going to be a better team than us, but on form, they haven't been. They've been pretty average to start the year, but they made us look second rate. They just sort of spread better than us, so worked harder. We thought dropping Dylan Shield to the sub would hopefully spur something, but with the exception of Zach Merritt, who is only 2 weeks back from a syndesmosis, we really weren't chasing much in defence. So it left our defenders isolated once again, and with the exception of probably Peter Wright and Nick Martin, there weren't a lot of positives to take out of today, I didn't think.
Yeah, Peter Wright was a positive, but I know, look, I'm going to be a little bit harsh here, but 2 of the goals he did kick sort of did come in junk time. So he presented hard, and the midfield certainly didn't deliver great to him. I don't know. That to me, and as I said, I know I'm being harsh, but it does feel like a reach to say he's a positive, even though he did kick 4 goals. But I mean, I'm pretty flat about the club at the moment. So, I'm looking at any positive with the half glass full approach. Really, there's not a lot of happiness coming out of me towards the Essendon Football Club at this point in time.
Like I said, Nick Martin continues to show that we haven't quite Essingtoned him just yet. We're on our way. But, for someone that's 4 or 5 games into his career, he's very composed. He still works really hard. I thought, Zach accumulated some stats, but I do think he did try defensively. He did pop up in our back 50 quite a lot, trying to provide an extra number. And the fact that he's his second week back from a syndesmosis and he's already our hardest working midfielder is either really good or a really bad thing.
We're looking at you then, jmoo.
Great. So I think two things, Grizz. I think you're showing off now that you've said syndesmosis twice and you've nailed the pronunciation. So that's noted. But I think, and Nick Martin, he was the only reason I didn't turn the television off and walk away. He's fantastic. I reckon he's one of the very few shining lights in terms of just a player who tries. And Durham as well. He's another one who just tries and is hard at the ball. But the thing that annoyed me a bit about Zach Merritt's game is a couple of times he did a tackle. And, that's great that our midfield leaders are actually trying to do a tackle. But his arm slipped up a little bit. The opposition player dropped his knees and he just grazed the chin of the opposition. And they called a high free kick against him. And you could just kind of tell that, okay, he's not going to do any more tackles anymore. That's kind of him done. But watching the game today, it's like we're trying to replicate training drills that we've done during the week. And we look somewhat perturbed that there's actually opposition team, opposing us while we're doing it. And it kind of just annoys us that we can't just do the little dinky hand passes in a star of 5 while someone's trying to get the ball off us.
I did laugh because somebody said to me that Nick Martin is is definitely one of our best players at the moment, but you can see that he hasn't been in the Essendon system very long because he still knows what to do. He still knows how to move the ball forward when he gets the ball into his hands. But just on Zach and Darcy, and look, Darcy again had another. He had another lot of stats today, I suppose, is the way of putting it. Zach had 36, Darcy had 32. But Zach had 27 handballs and Darcy had 19. I mean, if you're going to... Surely the ratio has to be the other way around. Surely you want to have more kicks than handballs. And I thought Shield was okay once he came on. His first 30 or 40 seconds, I think he had about 5 touches and laid a couple of tackles. So he looked like he really wanted to make a statement when he came on. But then obviously, it was pretty hard to keep that sort of pace up. But it's interesting with Parrish because there was a stage there today where Parrish blazed away going to the forward 50. It was then turned over. It went back up the other end. He then was on the end of a kick that he should have marked at the defensive 50. He dropped it. It turned over. And the Bulldogs kicked a goal. And someone made the point that, if Dylan Shield had done that, our board would have absolutely erupted. It would have been pages and pages of just howling about Dylan Shield. But Darcy did it, so we sort of let him off a little bit. I mean, it was a little bit of a, that wasn't a great passage for Darcy, but we didn't really focus on that, I suppose, as supporters. And it does sort of raise the question that maybe someone like a Darcy Parrish needs a real rocket because the reaction to him doing something poor at the moment is sort of offset by the fact that, well, he's still getting his 30 odd touches, but are him and Zach doing a lot with those 30 touches at the moment?
I found myself turning into the old man at the footy who, after a couple of chains of handballs, I find myself just yelling out, just kick the thing, just kick the thing. But they just really need to, at some point, after half a dozen handballs that are just floating up in the air, going backwards or a metre to someone else, just kick the thing. And I think that's the thing with the 30 possessions to half time, if half of those are ineffectual or just go to somebody who's in even more pressure and under, even more stress to get rid of it, what's the point?
I think with Darcy, disposals is irrelevant. And that's going to sound really weird, but I don't look at it as disposals. So he had 32 disposals for 325 metres gained. So he's only, on average, gaining 10 metres of disposal. Compare that with Bailey Dale, who's almost 800 metres on 24 disposals, or Ed Richards, who's almost 700 metres with 20 disposals. They're just, and I know they're half-back, so, their whole shtick is kicking and running the football, but it just goes to show that you don't get a lot of bang for your buck with Darcy and Zach at the moment, and probably even Dylan Shield when you think about it. Jai Caldwell hardly got the ball to 3/4 time. And we want to talk about poor efforts. There was one passage, I think it was in the third quarter, where Caldwell and Treloar started sort of side by side at a stoppage at half back. Treloar took off and basically got the ball and took 4 bounces. And then they panned out on the replay and Jai Caldwell standing at half back. Meanwhile, Tom Cutler has, seen that Jai Caldwell hasn't chased. And so he sprinted 20 metres off the other wing to try provide a chase. And the Bulldogs go forward, I think, kick a point. But it just goes to show that the lack of effort at the moment in defensive running and in all sorts of areas isn't limited to just Dylan Shield. It's limited to really our whole midfield group at the moment, to be honest. The touches are irrelevant. What are you doing with it? And more importantly, what are you doing without the ball? Because like Jamie said, we're just sort of flicking it around in circles and not really doing anything productive with our disposals. And, the side kicking, I don't know if we're just doing it, but like the ball movement's so slow. And generally teams that move the ball slow, like Geelong and Collingwood for a time, do it so they can set up their defence behind the football. But we're moving the ball slow and not setting ourselves up behind the football, because we're turning it over and just getting absolutely crucified on the way back. So what are we even doing? It's just bizarre.
You're right. And I think we've somehow got drummed into our heads that as soon as we get the ball, hand pass it off so it's no longer your responsibility and it's someone else's problem. And that's what it is. And you see the opposition players, they'll get the ball, go to run, look sideways and forward to see if someone's running past, and go to take a bounce. We get the ball, we actually raise our right arm to go for a hand pass, and we'll run ready to dish it off on a hand pass rather than run looking to kick it to somebody. It's our first and only instinct is to get the ball and get it off, hand pass it to someone so it's no longer our problem as quickly as we possibly can. It's awful.
It is. But Grizz, I do want to throw something at you, because it was something that I heard Ross Lyon say on the radio, which I thought was a very interesting point. He did say today that he thought our midfielders were pushing back, but he thought they were pushing back too deep on the counter. He said at some point the midfield has to back the defenders in to do their job. So his point was that was part of the reason that they were able to transfer the ball so quickly, and teams have been able to do that against, is because the spots where our midfielders meant to be up on the wings, the halfback, the wing, that sort of area, they're not there. They're inside our defensive 50. And so teams are just strolling forward because there's nobody in that zone. So he actually thinks that we're potentially setting our zone up far too deep. But yeah, I mean, is that something you've noticed, or do you think maybe Ross is just trying to create something where there's nothing?
So it depends where the turnover and the transition is coming from. I still think our ability to let teams stroll off halfback or our half forward line through the middle of the field, like your midfielders aren't getting deep then. They're just caught on the hop. And that's the example I brought up with Joe Caldwell. In the terms of repeat entries, yeah, you're probably right. There were multiple times where Zach Merritt found himself basically at fullback trying to find the ball and provide an outnumber with Jordan Ridley, who I actually think talking about positive, did a decent job on Aaron Norton, probably. But it depends where the turnover's from. And that's what I was saying more. When we turn it over coming out of halfback, yeah, we probably are caught too deep, but we're probably turning it over because all our defenders are on the last line and there's no one up there to provide sort of a contest. But yeah, look, again, when you play such a slow way out, and when we do get control of the football in a mark, we're so slow to make a decision. You do that to try to set your defence up behind the football. And it just seems like we have no idea. And I said it before, but it's like we've never seen a team switch the footy before. Because every time it happens, they always have 2 or 3 players out. It's like, how have we not figured this out in 6 rounds? Anyway, but it's just unbelievable. I don't know. Like,
look, I'll be honest. There's only so many ways we can skin this cat and say that that Essendon struggled today and the ball movement was slow. So instead of focusing on what's already happened, let's turn to next week's game, which is of course against Hawthorne. Now I don't know about either of you two. We'll start with you, Jamie. But just for me, I hate Hawthorne, I think, more than any other club. I know that we have our rivals with Collingwood, with Carlton, and the rest. And look, for other people, they're the bigger rivals. But I mean, I've got some family members and friends who support those, so I'm probably a little bit softer on them than other Essendon fans. But Hawthorne they just grind my gears, and it was absolute hell that during our time with WADA and all that rubbish that happened, in the mid 2010s, that Hawthorne were three-peating. I mean, that was just brutal for me. So, but yeah, I mean, what about you? Do you think Hawthorne's our biggest rival from your point of view, or is there somebody else out there that you hate more?
Look, to be perfectly honest with you, I probably hate Essendon the most, and then Hawthorne would be a very close second. But you're right. Like, my formative years was in the 80s, where Hawthorne was always, an arch rival then, but it was a respectable arch rival, and it was a nice rival. But you're right. In the last 5-10 years, we've got nothing, and they've been awful and successful and arrogant, and it's been horrible. So yeah, I would like most to beat Hawthorne if it was at all possible. Unfortunately, I don't think it is. Having said that, I'm looking forward to getting excited during selection, and Thursday is my favourite time of the week when we look at the selection table and we say yes, we finally done some good decisions at the selection table. This is our week. This is our week, Bonds. This is our week. And then invariably we'll get let down. But yeah, I'm looking forward to Thursday's selection so that I can get amped up for the weekend.
I reckon it's Hawthorne 1A, Carlton 1B. I don't really have any sort of strong feelings towards Collingwood and Richmond and those sorts of teams, to be honest. I think Carlton are probably a bit like us in that they've probably waited even longer for success than we have. But I think Hawthorne and Carlton are probably my two most hated football clubs. But yeah, Hawthorne's going to be no easy beat. They're playing good footy this year, and they play a really attacking style. And the way they move the ball by foot seems to be our Achilles heel. And we have a lot of Achilles heels at the moment, but one that we see quite often at the moment in terms of ability to switch the ball and use it by foot. So it's certainly going to be a tough match. And they gave Melbourne all they could handle on Saturday night, which, if you're pushing Melbourne to the limits like they were, you're a decent footy team. They're well drilled, and I think they're probably the better team, but I think the gap isn't so big that we're not a shot at least.
It's going to be interesting to see us play Hawthorne because it really is. I mean, they have a very contrasting style to us. So for example, we overuse the ball a lot. We take a lot of possessions, but I don't think they do that anywhere near as much. So they actually used to be probably in the same position we are when Tom Mitchell and Jagger O'Meara were getting 30 plus touches every week, and then everyone else was sort of doing their piece. But if you actually look at it now, so Tom Mitchell's averaged 28 touches this season. And then after that, you've got James Sicily with 23. So they've actually only got 4 blokes, and John Newcomb's one, and Jath's the other one, 4 blokes averaging 20 or more touches. Whereas, then you look across at us, and we've got Zach with 35, Darcy with 34, Andrew McGrath at 24, Shield, Heppel, Martin, Caldwell. We all average 20 or more. So they, I think, tend to spread the ball around a bit more and be a bit more direct and use the ball sparingly, whereas we're a very heavy disposal side. So it's going to be very interesting, I think, to see how those two styles actually contrast against each other.
They kick the ball far more than we do. They play a very direct style. They've got Jath, who just comes off the halfback flank like he's on pingers or something. Like it's the way they play is so different to ours. And I say that as a joke, obviously, if you're listening, CJ. But it's.
I have no doubt he's listening.
That's
sure.
it.
He's not going to remember. He's too all ping it up to recall tomorrow.
Yeah. But I suppose what I'm trying to say is they play such a direct style of football. It's a very Sam Mitchell. When you think about how Sam Mitchell used to play, amazing foot skills, a real attacking style. And, they can get opened up on the backs on, the other side of the football, but I don't think we're nearly attacking enough to make sort of any use of that. So I think if we're going to win this game, it's going to be in the trenches, and it's going to be a complete ascendancy at clearances. It's probably what we're going to need to get the ball forward quickly and pin it in there and score quickly from that.
I think the other thing with Hawthorne this year is they have had a number of probably lesser named players turn up in ways that, even their most optimistic of fans wouldn't have thought. And Dylan Moore's definitely one of those players. He's been exceptional so far this season as a half-forward link-up player because he gets down to the half-back line. He'll get his kick down there. But then, by the end of the passage of play, he's actually up the other end on the end of the thing he started down the half-back line. So it pains me to say they are a very well-drilled, as you said, Grizz, very well-drilled side right now. And I think they're going to be very difficult for us to beat.
Mm-hmm. Oh, look, I'm nodding here like an idiot as I watch other games of football and know how Hawthorne play, but I don't. I mean, watching the Bombers is like playing Elden Ring. It's not fun. It's not enjoyable. It's a massive grind. It's hard work, but damn it, I bought it. I made a commitment. I'm going to see it through to the end, but I'm not going to watch other teams play.
I've never played Elden Ring, but it sounds like fun.
It's awful. It's awful. I mean, it was so bad watching the Bombers play. At about 3/4 time, I thought I'd much rather do anything else here, like stick kerosene-soaked bamboo skewers up my urethra, or go and play Elden Ring for a while.
That's a fair old comparison.
That's a shout out to the gamers listening.
The other problem we've got, obviously, is Hawthorne's key forwards, are going to present a handful. Mitch Lewis missed, but I think he should be back against us, which would be lovely. And again, how fantastic is that for Hawthorne? Pick 78, and they've picked up a key forward that we would kill to have our hands on right now.
I've sort of been quite impressed with our key defenders this year, considering the duress the midfield have put them under at different points. But I think so much of their key forward success comes from how they move the football. They do get a lot of one-on-one looks for those guys. And Mitchell Lewis, you're right, is a steal at pick 78. Anytime you can pick up a player at pick 78 is a bonus. If you can pick up a key position forward that looks of pretty good quality at pick 78, then, that's quite... do you remember when he was drafted? That was the year they got rid of Jordan Lewis and Sam Mitchell. Then they got rid of Sam Mitchell and Jordan Lewis, and then drafted a guy called Mitchell Lewis, and we all thought it was like some big troll. like they can't be serious. They're just taking the mickey now, but apparently it's worked out quite well. I don't know. I didn't watch the VFL on the weekend, but I know Harry Jones didn't play. We're now at round 7, possibly round 8, and he hasn't played yet. He missed the last 8 or so games of last year, so it's starting to become a significant worry for mine.
I got 2 words for you, Grizz. Scott Gumbleton.
Ah, yes. The cursed words of Scott. Look, I hope not. But regardless, Waller seems a fair way off. Tom Hurd is somehow our most promising player, and we can't even bring him in because we have no long-term injuries, and he's a Cat B rookie. So,
do you know what? Tom Hurd is not even the best Hurd in the VFL team.
Oh, well, there you go.
I didn't realize James. I didn't know.
What are they going to do?
I didn't know James had pulled the boots on.
Yeah, there you go. So, isn't it very Essendon that of the 2 brothers running around the VFL, the one that's playing the best is not even on our list, and the one that is on our list we can't even play because he's a Cat B rookie? Like, is there any more Essendon scenario than that? But anyway.
Well, Alex didn't actually play this weekend, so I think jmoo may be overstating the how good he is compared to Tom. Although Tom has been on record as saying Alex is the better player. But looking at the VFL this week, they again, unfortunately, didn't hold on to their halftime lead, and they went down to the Bulldogs by 13 points at the Whitten Oval. And the concerning thing is, which we've said previously, is you look at the stat sheet, and Joe Atley had the most touches for us. Then it's Sam Conforti. It goes down there. Braden Ham had 21 touches, so he's probably knocking on the door again. Nick Hind played all right with 20 touches. Garrett McDonough, or however you pronounce it, I'm not actually sure how you pronounce it. He played
Old Man Donahue.
Old Man Donahue, yeah, that's the one. He's
58, right? Turning 58. The oldest player on any list ever.
You'd think so, by the way he's talked about on the board. You'd think, he's just got his pensioner's card.
He's the project player that we picked up for 26. So he was all right, but none of these guys are going to be playing inside mid, are they? And that's the thing, and that's where we still get smashed in the not inside mid, but just midfield in general. I mean, I know you and I probably disagree about Ham on in the midfield at AFL level, Grizz. I think you do think he has a future on a wing, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, no, not in the midfield. No. As a wingman or a halfback, sure. No, I don't think he's going to be an AFL standard midfielder. He's nowhere near big enough. And I think his best asset is his running ability, which ironically is probably what we could use in our midfield at the moment, at least defensively. But I think there's a spot for him on a wing, definitely.
I'm still old-fashioned, Grizz. I count the wing as the midfield still. That's still a midfield spot for me.
Old-fashioned. If you were old-fashioned, you would consider the wing completely different to the midfield. Calling a wing a midfielder is a very 2020 notion. It's back in the 80s and 90s with Robbie Flower and Robert, Di Pier Domenico playing exclusively on the wing. That's a specialist position.
Sorry, can you just pronounce Dipper's last name again?
Di Pier Domenico.
I'm not too sure that's how... I'm not going to try and pronounce it myself, but I don't think that... Is that how it's pronounced, jmoo?
Di Pier Domenico.
Yeah. That's a bit quick. That's a bit more what I thought.
Sorry, mate.
I just
Jeez.
are we talking about, but yeah, no, well, okay, I'll take your point. And look, when I say you're probably right, it probably 80s and 90s, the wing position was considered a specialist position, but I very much consider it in the midfield, but,
well, it is in the modern day. So in the modern day, if the ball's on your wing, you basically play as a midfielder. If it's not on your wing, you basically run to half back. That's how, I don't know. The modern wingman doesn't exist really, but I think anyway, we're arguing about Braden Ham, which I think is a good use of no one's time, to be honest. But
well, look, now that Cox has faked an injury to, get out of the team, he could have a spot in the wing.
Don't get us started on Cox. Seriously.
If Cox has got a long-term injury, there's Tom Hurd's entry into the side.
Oh, there we go.
If Cox is injured, legitimately injured, I will bear my bum in Burke Street.
You've gone very hard on poor old Cox.
No. Good luck to him. If he doesn't want to be there and he's, playing in the wrong position and he's bored and disinterested, whatever you need to do to look after yourself, fake an injury, spend some time elsewhere. Good luck to him. But I reckon he has pulled up a little bit short. Bit sore, just to get out of the field and get off the train wreck.
Yeah, get off the wing. Well, he actually started today's game at the very first bounce. He played out of the square, so I thought they'd finally decide to play him as a forward. And then after we kicked the first goal, he then lined up on the wing at the next one and all hell broke loose again. But yeah, so in terms of changes, because there's not much in the VFL knocking down the door. The only one, and I've said before, and I'll say it again, Nick Bryan has to play AFL football at some point. I just don't understand how you've got him running around. And look, Draper was really good today. Draper was excellent today for what he provided. But Kane Baldwin,
Kane Baldwin nowhere near the ruck, whatever he is doing.
Yeah.
Get him away.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like Kane Baldwin, I appreciate that we need to give him some time because of his injuries, but he's not AFL quality at the moment. And if you're going to play him as a second ruck, which we did at times again today, and I said on this podcast last week, and I stand by it, it's one of the dumbest things I've ever seen, having a guy who's coming off 2 knee recos playing as the second ruck. You're much better off playing Nick Bryan because, for starters, we know Nick Bryan can play at AFL level. We've seen him do it. Albeit one game, but he still played reasonably well. And secondly, Sammy Draper started clunking some marks, so his set shots aren't great, but he's worked on it, so they're not as bad as they were. So I just still think that Nick Bryan, Sam Draper is that 1-2 punch, one to the ruck, one forward is a option that just I don't understand why we haven't taken it, but.
Look, one thing I will say about Kane Baldwin is his ability to take a football to the face is AFL standard.
Yeah, he did get Falcon today. He got Falcon last week too, I think, to Paul
Butler, so. He's got form and he takes it like a champ. And I don't know many other AFL footballers who can take a football to the face like he can and shake it off and keep on, trying to play football.
Well, lads, I think that's going to do us for tonight. It's always a tough slog to talk about the Essendon Football Club after yet another disappointing week. It will, as I said, it's going to be very fascinating to watch us play against Hawthorne because I think their midfield is one that we will stack up well with, and I'm still not sold that their key position players are all that great. So it's one of those games that, as you said, Grizz, we're actually not that far behind them. And the other exciting thing, of course, is we get to watch Sam Frost. And who doesn't love Sam Frost taking a mark and then tucking the ball under his arm, running 15 metres? Because you just never know what's going to happen when Frosty gets his hands on that pill. So
Sam Frost was great in The Bachelor. She was great.
Yes, Sam Frost was also very good in The Bachelor. So that's something I'll definitely look forward to this week, is watching Sam Frost run around and hopefully make some horrendous turnovers and gift us a couple of goals.
I'm going to do a cheeky prediction. I'm going to say that Darcy Parish will be out with COVID protocols for the Hawthorne game. That's based on absolutely nothing.
What kind of prediction?
Okay.
But if it comes true, it's going to look great. Darcy Parish, COVID protocols, out for Hawthorne.
Next minute, there's a news article about a man named jmoo who just went on, just sprayed something on Darcy Parish midweek.
I'm going to deliver a chicken to his house, a hot roasted chicken, and he'll be gone.
Poor old Nick Hind. Yeah, well, even maybe Hind comes back this week and we try and play a bit more direct and get him just to run and kick. I don't know, but yeah. So that's Jamie's Grizz. Do you want to have an out there prediction for us, Grizz?
Oh well, he set the bar pretty high there. Like that's really out there. Is it more out there to say I think Essendon might actually win this?
Yes.
Is that more?
That'd be ridiculous.
We're realistic on this podcast, Chris.
Oh, sorry. All right. Yeah. No. I think that. I think Hawthorne will win. I think Peter Wright could kick 5.
Ooh, I could get behind that.
Yeah, actually, there was one today. I did see somebody had a small wager on Peter Wright to kick 5, and in the last quarter where he kicked 4 and then. He let one go for Jakey Stringer, which he probably could have snaffled himself, done a Tom McDonald. So that bloke's probably not happy with Peter right about now either. But okay, well, crazy predictions. Well, I suppose I don't really have a crazy prediction, but I'll just say I think Jake Stringer is probably going to kick 6 goals next week. I think he's looked a bit down. He has been a little bit injured, but he also has gone his traditional pick and choose when to go time. And I think next week he's just going to decide, no, I'm going to rip it up. We're going to have a dominant game, and he'll kick 6 as we go down by 73 points.
Wait, hold on. Kick 6 and go down by... That would be a very bizarre set of circumstances.
Hey, I'll go for out there predictions. Look, I'm not as crazy as you, Grizz. I'm not going to even mildly suggest that we're going to win this game, but I will concede you are right. We're not as far away from it as potentially.
I'm sorry, I got carried away, lads. I'm sorry. That was.
But that will do us, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you once again for listening, and as always, tune in next week because we will be able to discuss whether or not Grizz's prediction was as insane as Jmoo and I have made it out to be.